Okay.
What are the challenges that you had when you were in the economic crisis of running an apparel company?
Okay, so Charit, so many challenges. I would deny that simply because we are dependent a lot on our supply chain, right? Even from the very point of extracting the yarn, that is further down the supply chain. As we all know, the entire supply chain during the economic crisis, it just in between the pandemic and also the Sri Lankan economic crisis, if we call it, supply chain got completely disrupted. And certain things that we knew in the supply chain completely changed upside down again. So the challenges that we faced in terms of sourcing the right component at the right time and using the right mode. If you look at sea freight to air freight, it's a complete different ball game altogether when it comes to costs as well. So supply chain disruptions were major challenges that we faced. On the customer side, we are faced with challenges where brands or what we call retailers, they have challenges in their inventories due to certain demand changes after a pandemic and going into multiple economic crises. So as a manufacturer, we are pressure from both sides, supply chain and the demand. And internally within Sri Lanka, all of us know that we have a lot of challenges internally. Workforce, keeping the workforce healthy, keeping the workforce coming in and day out, getting to work, and how do we kind of embrace that there is a brain drain, and we have to accept it, but how do we address it? So three key areas where we have faced challenges: supply chain, customers, and the internal workforce, and hence the need to come up with various different new business models, various digital enablement.
Topic: performing during an economic crisis. So, to formally introduce our speaker for this afternoon, I'd like to welcome Dr. Rohan Datukorula, the pioneer behind the MBA Diary webinar series. Doctor, over to you.
Thank you, Ruth. And we got an amazing person, engineer by profession, 23 years outstanding corporate experience in digital technology solutions, transformation, consulting, corporate leadership, and mentoring. He has been a rare experience of working in diverse industries as software and design development, telecom, enterprise architecture, transformational consulting, software services delivery, and of course, the apparel manufacturer. He currently is the group digital chief digital and transformation officer in Stretchline Holdings Limited. He was instrumental in setting up the operationalizing of the group digital vision and driving towards a mature, smart organization, embracing the capability of Industry 4.0 data analytics, process automation, friction collaboration, API play has enabled the organization to secure an ecosystem to bring life vision of the company. A graduate of the University of Moratuwa specializing in computer science and engineering, SEMA UK. He is a master's in business administration from Sheffield University UK and project management professional PIPM. Ladies and gentlemen, before I actually introduce the person, I just thought I need to just give a view because he's been so humble not to tell us too much about Stretchline Holdings. I just want to tell you that the organization happens to be, it's the world's largest manufacturer of narrow elastic fabric and a major supplier of covered electromagnetic yarn and textile coating and bonding solutions globally. It's I mean it's an amazing huge company that he works for, and if you go a little bit more in detail, it's from an origin of a world-class manufacturing intimate apparel, elastic, and a commitment of passion. The guy is like into huge product range that includes automobiles, medical application, footwear, wearable technologies, outerwear and activewear and swimwear. So, I mean, they do so much of research, and I think it's one of the top companies of Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, Shanaka Rabel, Group Chief Digital Transformation Officer, Stretchline Holdings Limited. Shanaka, over to you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much for that introduction, and humbled by your introduction as well. Thanks everyone for joining. I would like to flash a few slides so that it helps me to kind of articulate the message. Bear with me till I toggle with the technology for a bit. Once again, thank you for joining. I'll take you through a few slides. Basically, what we will discuss today is we'll look at what we call normalcy. The topic is around how do we perform in the times of economic crisis. Before we move into an economic crisis, we have normalcy. So let's look at what normalcy is. And what if we do nothing in times of change, in times of crisis, in times of uncertainty? A few ideas that I would like to share. Then what are the possibilities if we do something different? What is possible? And also some of the experts, what do they say? Some of the consulting companies, research organizations, what they say about performing during economic crisis. And then we'll go into some of the experiences that I can share. And last, let's look at how I can learn from all of you. So if we go into the first slide, I want to just set the stage in terms of this particular statement. Crisis and deadlocks, when they occur, they have a great potential to force us to think different. That's what Jawaharlal Nehru had to say. And this is many years ago, decades ago, but this is extremely important and relevant to this day. Crisis and times of deadlocks, they force us to think different. If you look at the first section of this talk, normalcy, what does normal times actually mean? It means that our shareholders, our stakeholders, they demand immediate results. A lot of people are in the comfort zone. Day in and day out, we come to work, not much changes. Of course, there are calculated changes that happen, but more or less, we are comfortable in doing what we do. And stakeholders believe in the same old. There are targets, obviously, that we need to achieve, but things are quite normal, things are settled, and then people are in the same comfort zone. Past success assumes future growth. This is an assumption in normal times that if we can do the same thing that gave us success in the last few decades, we assume that it will fuel us into the future. Busy times to run operations, lazy time to think different, something that most of us would have gone through. It's running operations that keeps us busy, and we are a bit lazy to think different. Remember normal times. Busy times to run operations, obviously it's a copy and paste, my mistake. Tight financial constraints, forced predictability. We love the word predictability. We don't really like surprises too much as human beings as well. So normal times, we force us to be predictable so that we have a comfort within us to address some of the future challenges, predictable challenges. If you look at the customer side, they are quite slow to adopt to changes. They expect the same thing, but of course, doing better on a daily basis. Traditional corporate culture usually lacks agility. Some of us can become busy fools. So that's what we talk in terms of normal times. Some level of these statements might resonate with you. You might have a different point of view, but I just wanted to bring in a few ideas that I have collected. When normal times go through, this is sometimes what we go through as well. What does it lead to? It actually leads to changes and experimentation falling below or falling to match the rate of change in the macro environment. We follow the rate of change in the macro environment. New thinking can often slow down projects without leadership owning up to it. So basically, during normal time, new thinking is encouraged, but at times it will also discourage us to act on it because it's a rate of change that we have to go with in the macro environment. We cannot sometimes get ourselves to leapfrog and go into various different cycles ahead of the curve. And this notion of not rocking the boat is sailing well, few ripples are there, but let's not rock the boat. Predictability often gets glorified, and we tend to kind of assume that predictability often is correct, and we need to make sure that not rocking the boat is kind of the theme. And during normal times, often thinking bold is discouraged. Not the same for everyone, but this is just a general trend. Thinking bold is often discouraged. And let's go into the next section. If you do nothing, nothing changes. If you do nothing, nothing actually changes. But when good times come back, we might be in for a rude shock. Why? If we have done nothing, we can't assume everybody has done nothing. So there would be certain rude shocks in the future. But what we could control will no longer be so. During normal times, we all know we set KPIs, we set measures, we set our targets. And more, when we do the same thing again and again, we perfect it. And some of these elements are much more controllable within us. Supply chain and demand dynamics would have new asks. During the normal times, transitioning into economic crisis and moving beyond the crisis, supply chain and demand dynamics will have new asks from every company. We've seen it many times over during the financial crisis in the West and very recently just after the pandemic. Employees and potential candidates, their needs would be very much different. Employees' needs would very much be different. The aspirations will be very different. And new joinees coming into the organization, their asks would be very different. Shareholders' expectations will probably be turned upside down. Most dangerously, if we do nothing, our competition would have figured things out. Hence, if we do nothing during crisis times, nothing changes within. What are the possibilities? If you look at possibilities first, let's again come to a common agreement. Let's accept that we are in crisis. Now we are transitioning into a crisis situation from normal times. We need to accept that we are in crisis. Denial is not an option at all. But once you accept, we should not be pressing the panic button. Panic only creates confusion and leads to irrational behavior. We should not press the snooze button as well. Snoozing is like snoozing the alarm. It comes back. It will ring back. So what should we do? In my experience and some of the things that I've studied from other organizations, talk to people, the first thing we should do during economic crisis is that the most important component in an organization, the people, they are addressed. They should know that we are in a crisis mode, but we are not pushing the panic button. We are not pressing the snooze button. Once you get people on board, then everybody is sailing towards the same goal. Everybody is sailing towards the lighthouse. They are not, going away from your shared vision. Breathe and investigate possibilities. Once you ensure the people are in line with what the organization's vision is to get out of the crisis, we need to look at possibilities. Identifying the core team to plan out what to do. What we do in crisis mode is very much different to what we generally do in normal time. So we need to plan out a core team which can be geared to do things differently. What the experts say, let's look at what some experts have to say. If you look at Gartner, what they say is Reducing the cost of doing business is something that we have to articulate really well during crisis times. Customer and employee experience, we need to look at how we improve them. Exploit compulsively disruptive innovations. Outperform competitors during recession. Summing up from what Gartner has to say. And what it further wants to articulate is during crisis time, we need to look at digital as an enabler, digital business optimization as well as transformation. Some statistics, 89% of the boards, what they are saying is digital is an implicit part of growth, not an option, not a nice to have, not bells and whistles. It's an implicit part of growth. 80% of CFOs are planning to increase the digital spend / investment at least between 3 to 10%. Some are going even beyond 10%. McKinsey, what they say is they talk of bold actions, not just putting lipstick, but real digital strategies at scale. And mind you, this is during crisis times. We need to relook at our business model, reimagine it, and then reinvent it in a way that we have new enablers coming in. We are ready to move into a very different world. Supply chain transparency is extremely important. And if you look at our data assets, safeguarding our data assets is also extremely important. When it comes to our people, remote workforce and also the ability to work from anywhere, work from home, work from a different country, the enablement of that aspect is also important. What it summarizes is it says act, fail, learn, deliver fast. Speed of delivery, speed of action, speed of failing, speed of learning, they are all very different during times of crisis, in economic times of crisis, than in normal times. And certain projects need to be done at scale. There is a misnomer where people sometimes think, okay, everything is in crisis, economy is down, nothing seems to be working. Let's do small scale projects. Let's do what we can. But the challenge is when the times are getting better, not the normalcy, but the new normalcy sets in, all the parameters that you have around you, that you had around you would have changed. And in order to win in that upscale, once it comes back, we need to be ready. We need to have things at scale. That's what the experts say. So from experiences, I would like to place a few strategies that I have experienced. 2 capabilities to sharpen during economic crisis: agility and resilience. If you look at agility, I like this statement: be like water. That's what Bruce Lee says. Water takes the shape of the cup or the container that it takes. So we need to be agile enough when the economics change, when the business models change, when stakeholders' expectations change. We need to be agile enough to go along with it, even better to preempt it and be ready for it. That's agility. If we are rigid during economic times, economic crisis times, when the times become better, it's a new world out there. No more the old normalcy. So we need to be like water. I like this statement as well. It's not about how hard you get hit. It's about how many times you get up. Resilience is something that sometimes we don't really delve into. It's about how many times you get knocked up. You basically get up and become better. So these 2 are the capabilities you need to sharpen during times of crisis. And compulsive collaboration. That's something that we need to really bring in during times of crisis, because no man is an island. And especially during tough times, you need to leverage on each other's capabilities. So from a digital standpoint, this is something that we need to be really focused on. How do we build digital capabilities to work from anywhere? We look at working from home, we look at coming back to office, we look at hybrid models, we look at people working from remote locations. Even we look at how do we bring down costs by investing in shared services, where we have specific capabilities. that can be done anywhere in the world and then scale to a level without scaling number of people. Collaboration platforms to share digital artifacts, reduction in time and effort at work, sharing files, keeping paper documentation, keeping unconnected or disconnected storage services, that all creates stress, creates a friction. And during times of economic downturn, during times of hardships, we need to bring capabilities so that once the times are better, we kind of leap ahead of the competition. Reduction in time and effort at work, that's an extremely important point. And collaborative platforms to share digital artifacts. Again, reduction in time and effort. Full use of cognitive collective, that's a theme that I want to delve a bit on. The cognitive collective is something that goes in parallel with automation. What does it really mean? If you look at automation, sometimes we lose the fact that we are not trying to replace what a human being does. We are just trying to replace the non-cognitive component of that particular process. Meaning, if somebody can switch off their brain and then just get their muscle memory to work, that's a potential area we can automate. So we need to re-engineer the processes, make them as lean as possible, take away the non-value adding components, and identify the non-cognitive, high volume, frequent, rule-based processes, and then farm it off to software. Software can scale up and down much better than humans. So they can work 24/7. They don't need leave. They don't need the bio breaks, for example. So we need to understand where can we automate. And by automating, what we can do is we can let people sharpen skills. They have more time to sharpen their current skills, digital skills, and people skills. Then they can have KPIs set to acquire new skills in the future to future-proof the business, ingraining a learning culture, and then strengthening the customer face time. If we farm off some of the non-cognitive processes to software, we can automatically gain new bandwidth and build stronger links with our customers and suppliers and our stakeholders. We can have meaningful conversations with the use of data and insights. And these conversations can be relevant to strengthen the relationships and also to figure out new opportunities with the customers and our stakeholders. So the cognitive collective is to really understand, given the fabric of our people in the organization, how can we relieve or release their bandwidth to do better human connect, sharpen their skills, and then use of data so that they can analyze rather than do non-cognitive, rule-based, mundane type of processes. We've experienced this in our own organization, and we are moving ahead with so much of automation while we enable our people, our workforce, to use data and insights and to enable them to have relevant and meaningful conversations. And then an important aspect is margin control. If you look at profitability of an organization, there is not much in actually boasting about a top line if your bottom line is thin. That's where the money is in terms of sharing with our people, reinvesting into the future. So in terms of margin control, we need to focus on operations and inventory to inventory cycle. You bring stocks in, you bring raw material in, you produce goods out. So suppliers and customers aren't in your control during economic times, especially, and afterwards as well. There is a lot of price pressure from both sides. And if you have price pressure from both sides, the controllable aspect of margin becomes your internal operations. Competitive edge for the future. If we make our processes leaner, if we make meaningful automation processes active, if we have a culture of data-driven decisions, and if we have capabilities to intervene early, identify defects as they happen, then we are in a better position to be competitive in the future once the new normal sets in. Internalize what we call core competence. A lot of times when we have normal times, we don't really focus on our core competences because we are enjoying good times. But during the crisis, we need to really take a step back and figure out what are we actually doing. Is this within our core competence, or is this something that we need to let go or get someone else to do it? So laser focus on doing better on core competences is an important aspect during tough times. Innovating the way you operate, the whole operating model, we need to look at how can we do a lot of things on the internet. How can we convert a brick and mortar type of operation into a more connected digital operation? So internalizing and understanding your core competence becomes a huge aspect in terms of getting ready to come out of the crisis while also surviving and maybe sometimes thriving in crisis as well. Possible digital strategies that we can adopt. Automation, I spoke a bit earlier. So when you automate, you need to be really focused on what to automate. It's not just like Sitale Babam where you apply it everywhere. You need to assess what you need to operate. Key drivers would be, do we have a lot of human errors in a process? Is there a lot of rework due to wrong data entered? Are there delays in this process where things go back and forth? Full-time employment costs, do we have the right size for that particular process in terms of head count? And are we generating dirty data? Garbage in, garbage out, that's relevant today, relevant for tomorrow, relevant all the time. Mobility, if you look at being able to work from anywhere, that actually gives a lot of flexibility, actually brings a lot of agility into the organization. So we should look at possible cloud migrations. Most of the times we have data centers within our organizations, on-premises solutions that we have given out. But if we can move them into a cloud during crisis times, then we can actually look at mobility as well as we can change the way we actually approach some of the investments. More capex heavy investments can be converted to operational costs. Cloud migrations enable that. Multi-device access, a lot of things can be done through a mobile these days. You don't need a laptop or a desktop. So enabling our people to work from anywhere using any device that they are comfortable with helps them to get the job done at a lower cost. Single sign-on without keeping multiple passwords, keeping multiple authentication strategies for various different applications. If we can bring everything into a single sign-on platform, it helps us to drive costs as well. Collaboration from anywhere. All these mobility aspects will enable us to collaborate from anywhere, any time zone, any geography. Digital twin. Most of you would have heard of this particular philosophy of building digital twin of our physical operations. If you look at all of us as human beings, I would say most of us, while we are talking and while we are in this session, especially, some of you might have Facebook accounts, some of you might have LinkedIn accounts. Our friends and collaborators in our networks are liking what we have posted, commenting on what we have done while we are having this talk right now. So we have a digital presence in our social network as well. So building such a digital presence of our operations is extremely important, simply because it brings visibility into physical operations. We can monitor the operations from anywhere, and we can also drive standardizations. Outsourcing. So if you look at the core competence discussion that I had a couple of slides ago, if we identify what our core competences are, even from an IT digital standpoint, we need to identify what are our core competences from a digital perspective. Anything that is not core, we can hand it over to specialists outside. There's a huge amount of IT specialists, not only IT, any type of work. There are service providers. If we can build lasting, trusted relationships with our partners, we can definitely outsource while we focus on our core competences. Insights through data, cannot stress this enough. You need to build the platforms for data analytics. The technologies are rapidly moving ahead. We need to identify whether we are on a catching up game during crisis times or do we leapfrog. I personally took a strategy in a particular organization to leapfrog into various new technologies, and it really helped when the new normal set in. We need to look at a roadmap towards use of machine learning and artificial intelligence. There are about 10,000 AI tools that were launched, I think, in 2023. So it's an explosion of AI that we are seeing right now. In the couple of years coming in, we will see quantum computing exploding as well. So the marriage between quantum and AI will completely have radical changes in everything we do. A culture of marrying data and gut feel is an internalization we need to have within our organization. There is also this philosophy that when we have data analytics, we can kind of let go of our gut feel or human intuition. We can't. Human intuition and the gut feel often works. Data can either validate it or give a story that some of the parameters that our gut feel has worked with would have changed. So data is never a replacement of our gut feel and human intuition. It's actually a complementary arm that we can strengthen our decisions on. Simplifying infrastructure. From an IT standpoint, cloud adoption, everybody is going through a cloud adoption strategy. It may not be 100% cloud migration, but wherever we can migrate into a cloud platform, that's a viable opportunity we can take. Use of APIs in terms of application integration, democratizing the application capabilities. API play is massive. The moment you switch on your mobile phone, you are working with hundreds of APIs that it connects to, from its own OS to the applications that it runs on a mobile. This old understanding of loosely coupled, highly cohesive components is relevant today, and it will be relevant in the future. Development in terms of components, we need to get into a mindset of how we develop a particular component and use it many times with slight changes in the future. We cannot be doing the same thing again and again. Digital savviness. This is actually an important part when it comes to developing digital workforces. Awareness on digital capabilities across the company, not only in an IT digital team. We need to find champions in non-digital functions who will understand what digital can bring to the table and democratize with control and design. These are possible digital strategies and not limited to, but a few key strategies that we can employ during tough times. And then we come to the last slide. I want to learn from you. I would love to hear from you, your thoughts. It was just a glimpse of what I have experienced and I have seen out there. So I'll stop my slide deck and I'll hand it over to Dr. Rohanta and also Ruth. And I would love to hear from you and learn from you as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shanaka. Brilliant, brilliant. So, Shanaka, just a quick one. Could you just give us a little bit of background about Stretchline? Because, from what I'm reading, it's one of the top companies globally. Can you you've been so humble not to talk too much about Stretchline.
So Dr. Stretchline started off in the late 1990s. It actually spawned off from an idea from MAS into a backward integration into the supply chain. So we started off in the 90s supplying elastic or stretchable narrow fabric. And then, long story short, it actually grew into multiple countries. It went to China, Indonesia, and into the West as well. A lot of partnerships, a lot of collaborations. So now as we stand now, we are live in 7 countries, and we have done some acquisitions in the last couple of years. So from elastics to covered yarn, and the newest business that we took over is to dye a raw yarn and then bring it to other components. We are also looking at how do we go into multiple other businesses, which we can contribute using our core competence. Our core competence is to transform yarn and then bring industrial solutions. So that's our philosophy. And we've been fortunate enough to work in 7 countries with an international team. And our largest footprint of production is actually in Sri Lanka.
So how many people, Shanaka?
Globally, we are touching upon 4,000 to 4,500. We are really machine intensive more than people intensive on the floor, simply because we work with a lot of physics and chemical transformations on the raw materials. And we actually provide our components into our partners who are the garment vendors, and they do the assembling of the garment. So we produce the component, and hence we are more machine intensive.
So who are your global customers?
We initially started off as a more intimate apparel brand. So we started off with Victoria's Secret, and we moved into swimwear. Now, athleisure, if you look at Nike, Under Armour, Lululemon, and even Gymshark, these are some of our bigger brands that we serve. Obviously, the Victoria's Secret and Calcedonia in Italy, some of the lingerie and intimate apparel brands are still with us, very much with us. The secret sauce behind, I would say, our expansion and our success is being innovative, as you mentioned earlier, and co-collaborating with the brands to actually develop the elastic component rather than just being a commodity provider for a garment vendor.
Fantastic. I mean, whole heap of questions are coming in, Shanaka. I'll take the first one, which Suharshini is saying, and
Sure.
she's studying for the Staffordshire University Master's Program. She's based in Sri Lanka, and she's saying, what makes you tick in working at Stretchline? You've been, but I think what she's asking is a very personal question, which is, being part of a large conglomerate, having a successful 23-year career stemming from the University of Moratuwa. I think she's trying to find out what makes you tick, what makes you like getting up in the morning and saying, I want to go to work.
Okay, that's a good question. So I've been fortunate enough to work in multiple industries. So starting with software design and development, telecommunications, consulting, and now in apparel. A philosophy that I always use is, what's the change that I can bring to the organization? Maybe it's digital, maybe it's something else, maybe it's completely different to what I do. But what makes me tick in any organization, certainly it is in Stretchline, is the ability to influence change, the ability to bring in positive change into the organization and do it repeatedly and being better every day. And also to make sure that we are inspiring a lot of others to do similar. Contribution is quite an interesting word that I've coined it internally. As long as you continue contributing to the organization positively, I think I'm motivated. That's the long and short of my answer.
Shalini, who is joining us from Reading in the UK, and she's also studying for the same master's program, Shanaka. She says, you work for a brilliant company. Why are you not going overseas?
Brain drain. Yeah, so a pertinent question. And this is my personal take on it. People leave the country for various reasons. There is absolutely nothing wrong in it. There is no need to judge anyone doing it. But from my point of view, I always love this land, so to speak. Sri Lanka is my home. I've studied overseas. I've worked in international companies. I've been fortunate enough to travel extensively. But there is something that keeps me grounded to Sri Lanka, and I feel this country has a lot to offer, even though there's a lot of turmoil around us in every aspect. But I would say I will continue to serve the country and do what I can, simply because I am more happier than not happy being in this country.
There's a question, anonymous. She doesn't want to reveal who she is. It says, what is your advice to us trying to make a life in a country which is in economic crisis? Interesting question.
Interesting indeed. So interestingly, I have tried to ask that question even myself. So there's a lot of stuff going out there. You know, if you switch on the TV, you see a lot of things that are very negative, and it is easier for us to get carried away. A mantra or something that I have internalized is that it's all in our mind. If you really look at our mind, you can fill it up with anything. You can fill it up with fragrant flowers, or you can fill it up with garbage outside. So just to keep sanity, just to keep a level head, we need to really take a step back and understand how do we go with the flow. Again, coming back to this notion of circle of control and circle of influence, and what is outside the circle of influence. A lot of things are outside the circle of our influence, or rather my influence, right? It's an example I take. If it's raining, I can't stop rain, and I might decide I can't go for my usual evening jog. But what if I can go with a cap and also take an umbrella? It might rain, but I do my cardio work anyway. So it's just a matter of us keeping a level head. Look at what we can do to influence others. Look at what we can do to contribute, and not get carried away and burn energy in fighting what we don't control. Easier said than done, but I certainly believe it can be done because it's up to us. It's our choice. So we need to kind of let go of everything that's out there as chaos, and then focus on what we can do to influence first our immediate families, our work colleagues, our organization, and then the communities. I hope that gives
Charit
somewhat of
from
an answer.
yep, Shanaka. Charit from INSEAD, based in Singapore. He works for INSEAD. He says running a apparel company during the economic crisis.
Sorry, doctor. I think I lost the voice a bit.
Okay, Charit is from INSEAD, and he's asking,
Okay.
what are the challenges that you had when you were in the economic crisis of running an apparel company?
Okay, so Charit, so many challenges. I would deny that. Simply because we are dependent a lot on our supply chain, right? Even from the very point of extracting the yarn, that is further down the supply chain. As we all know, the entire supply chain during the economic crisis, it just in between the pandemic and also the Sri Lankan economic crisis, if we call it, supply chain got completely disrupted. And certain things that we knew in the supply chain completely changed upside down again. So the challenges that we faced in terms of sourcing the right component at the right time and using the right mode. If you look at sea freight to air freight, it's a completely different ball game altogether when it comes to costs as well. So supply chain disruptions were major challenges that we faced. On the customer side, we are faced with challenges where brands, or what we call retailers, they have challenges in their inventories due to certain demand changes after a pandemic and going into multiple economic crises. So as a manufacturer, we are pressure from both sides, supply chain and the demand. And internally within Sri Lanka, all of us know that we have a lot of challenges internally. Workforce, keeping the workforce healthy, keeping the workforce coming in and day out, getting to work. And how do we kind of embrace that there is a brain drain, and we have to accept it, but how do we address it? So three key areas where we have faced challenges: supply chain, customers, and the internal workforce. And hence the need to come up with various different new business models, various digital enablement.
Rebecca from UAE is asking you, what is your next steps, as you have had an amazing career in one of the companies that is taking Sri Lanka to the world?
Next steps, interesting. So next steps, I something that I always wanted was to look at how can we make, not really make, how can we develop better human beings? How can we make better leaders? Leadership, I don't really feel as if it's a title. It's actually a daily thing. Leading ourselves is one thing that we need to embrace first. So, from a Sri Lankan perspective, I strongly believe that there is a lot to change in our early education, our early childhood education. And my intent, if I can, is to make sure that I can contribute to that aspect of early childhood development, not to create more engineers or more doctors or more musicians or sportsmen. That's, I think, a given. It's just to make sure that we create people who can lead positively, people who can inspire others, and people who can be more human, than born human. So that's something I would like to get my hands on. I try to do it in small scale wherever I can. But yes, as the next step, that would be something that I would really be excited.
Shanaka, very interesting question coming up. He's a young MBA student and outstanding. He's saying, if you were to meet the president of Sri Lanka, what is the one thing you will tell him?
Okay, that's a toughie. Okay, so actually, if I meet him, what I will tell him is, just slow down, right? And then look at his responsibilities, because I seriously think that there is an expectation gap in terms of what we expect as people and what they are doing right now. It's not to look at politics per se, but as a president, it's all about the purpose of being the president. It's like running a company, right? You are the CEO. If you are going completely on a tangent where your people are completely thinking different, you can't sail the ship in the right direction. So I think somebody needs to tell him that you need to slow down. Obviously, there are other hands at play. But one message, if I'm able to meet him, would be to say, look at what the people are asking, and there has been a resounding voice from the people in the last few years. Are you listening? And then start listening. That's the first message. There's a whole heap of things that I would like to tell him, but the one thing that I would plant with him is listen to the people, and then the next step would come in.
Last question. I know I have taken your Sunday afternoon, Shanaka, and I know you guys take this serious. There's a nice question coming up from Parami. She's actually based in the UAE, studying for the Staffordshire University master's program, and she's saying, if you get another life, what will you do? Will you select a different career?
Another life. Actually speaking, if you were to answer that, it would mean that you need to point out some of the regrets that you have gone through in life. Fortunately, I do have regrets, but they are not significant enough. I wouldn't say that I would choose another career or choose this career, but something that I would want to really be equipped with is maybe more courage to do some of the things that I would like to do, but given certain parameters, maybe slowing me down. Obviously, I like to do better. So if I get another life and if I'm in a position to kind of look back at what I have done before, maybe a lot more courage to do things somewhat different, to stand up to what is right, and also to voice out. That's something that I would look forward to in another life if I do get it.
I just got one question coming from me, Shanaka, is how do you see the apparel industry evolving in the next 5 years, given the challenges you have in Sri Lanka? What kind of thinking do you advocate? Not necessarily Stretchline, but just broad, what do you think the industry will pursue? Because this year we have had a hit of $1 billion on the top line.
Yes,
I think
yes,
last year we did 5.1 billion, and this time it's going to be about 4 billion.
yes.
So we had like, 1995. I think Bangladesh and Vietnam and Sri Lanka were in about $4 to $5 billion kind of a thing. I yet remember this.
Yeah.
And today,
Doctor, I lost your voice and video. I'm not sure it's just me.
Doctor.
over.
Can the others? Sorry, you're back. I just lost your voice and the video froze.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm sorry. I know basically what I'm asked. You got the question, right?
No, that's when you froze. You were talking
Oh,
about
sorry.
Sri Lanka. Yeah, sorry
Yeah.
about it.
See, in 1995, Shanaka, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, and Bangladesh, all of us were in about $4 to $5 billion exports overall. Today, Bangladesh is about 53 billion, and Vietnam is at about uh, 325 billion. Sri Lanka is struggling at 12 billion minus one up to 11 billion. So, in this backdrop, how do you see the Sri Lanka's apparel industry kind of panning out? Because already we have lost $1 billion given the current crisis we are in, and of course
Yes.
the economic downturn in the US and the in Europe. How do you see this happening, evolving?
Yeah. So, very simply put, there is no doubt that Sri Lanka has a whole heap of talent. The people, the cognition power of people to basically produce, high quality apparel, I would say solutions, right? And that's how we actually became the most sought after for big brands out there. But if you look at the growth of Bangladesh and Vietnam vis-a-vis the growth of Sri Lanka in terms of the sector, scaling has been a bigger issue for us. And also in terms of operations, Bangladesh started as a very cheap kind of a location for stitching, or I would say garments per se. And more and more Bangladesh is moving up the ladder in terms of technology, infusion of technology, the innovativeness in terms of their processes. So it's not the most cheapest out there as well. The challenge that we have faced is in terms of the local economies, if you look at it, the country situation, which has not helped the export segment in a much more better way. Compare that with Vietnam. Vietnam has opened up really well. They are very, I would say, export friendly, and they are attracting a lot of foreign investments as well. So if you look at Sri Lanka, we still have a lot of things working for us because we have good links with the brands, we have good relationships with the retailers in the world. It's just that we need to infuse a lot of investments to make sure that we become more innovative in our production, and we have a lot of capital that we can expand into a much larger footprint. And this workforce, without people we can't do much. So when people are kind of moving out of the country in numbers, it's also a challenge for some of the retailers to bank on Sri Lanka, thinking that okay, they can scale to a level that they can bank on Sri Lanka as a apparel manufacturer. So there are multiple parameters at play. But the good thing that we have established with the rest of the world is that we are capable. We can give quality, the right quality that people are asking for. We are into ethical manufacturing, and that's been established. So that's why even during times of crisis, during COVID, we didn't lose a lot of businesses, we didn't lose a lot of customers because they believe in our strength. So going forward, if we can fix some of the challenges that we have, the ability to bring in capital, the ability to attract more foreign investments, ability to scale horizontally, ability to keep people interested in this industry and interested in being in Sri Lanka, I think we can definitely go back to the days where we were leading the sector. And technology plays a massive role because garments or fabric, as we speak, are becoming more technologically advanced, right? So in terms of that being infused into what we do is something that we can bring into a comparative advantage over the others.
Ladies and gentlemen, Shanaka Rabel, Group Chief Digital Transformation Officer, Stretchline Holdings Limited. Thank you so much, Shanaka. Lovely to see you
My
once
pleasure.
again, and outstanding thoughts, real cutting edge. Thank you for spending an hour with the youngsters on the MBA program. I mean, this is run on different platforms, so there are people, ambassadors watching from different parts of the world. There are people from Staffordshire University watching, and then of course you had the corporate heads who have been on this show who are also watching it. So about 400 to 450 people will watch it in the next 2 to 3 days. It's lovely to hear your thoughts and coming from one of the top corporate personalities in Sri Lanka. Ruth, over to you.
And Mr. Shanaka, just to add to what Dr. Hanta was just saying, your experience that you've shared with us, your knowledge, and in general, this is not just in terms of the work you've done, but the experience you've gained in your journey of life, if I may say so, is undoubtedly and will definitely inspire many individuals. And even if we've taken so much of your Sunday afternoon, I'm positive that it will positively impact them at some point in their journey as well. So for this, we are truly grateful for you for sparing your valuable time. I understand you're very busy. So you sharing your time with us means quite a lot to us, as well as our students and industry partners and alumni. So as I'm thanking you, I would also like to thank our students who are dedicated to their studies, committed to learning and growing, for being here today to hear you. I'd also like to thank our IT team for the technical support extended, and not forgetting our industry partners and well-wishers who've joined in to share this session with us. So with this, before I close, I'd like to remind all industry partners that at APIT, we do have internship programs that we offer our students. And if you do have any openings at your company, please do send it our way. So with this, I'd like to wish everyone a good day, good afternoon, and a good evening from wherever you're joining in. Till the next session. Take care.